Engage fluo injectors.
Engaging fluo injectors.
Fluo reactors at 80%, sir.
Fluo containment field is destabilizing.
Emergency fluo containment protocols now. All hands brace for impact.
Brace for impact in 3, 2, 1.
And we're back with another episode of World 1-1 Podcast. Before we dig in, a couple of pieces. Quick tease for the third half of the show. Kathy and I are talking about Zeldalikes, and you should stick around for that because it's awesome. Also, you can and should subscribe and share to the show if you haven't already. Make sure you share it with your friends so that they can be miserable right along with you. That said, also, check the show notes. Come join and jump into our Discord and come chat with us. It's nice to talk to the three people that listen to this on a semi-regular basis. Shout out to our awesome sponsor, though, Imaginary Authors, helping you up your set game. More about them just before the break. All that out of the way.
Choose your fighter!
I am, as always, your host, Roll to the Wall. Joining me this week are my good friends and borderline family. One of them is... let's start with Michael, because I haven't seen your face for fucking ever, and I still can't see your face, but we're not nitpicking about that. I'm just making a joke about it at this point. So
That's good. I didn't want to have to stab you.
That's not true. You want to stab everyone.
Michael, you're not a Pokemon. You don't get stat attribute bonus.
You are a liar, and I don't appreciate it.
Also with me this week is my wonderful wife, Zoe.
Sup, y'all?
And becoming the ever faithful Wes Evans.
Becoming?
Uh-huh.
Oh, well, you know what? I'll take that as a compliment.
It is. So, all right. Let's dive in, boys and girls and non-binary pals. So, let's get to...
Oh my gosh!
Video
And
game.
because I haven't heard from you in the longest, Michael, you're up.
I've been playing
What's
the
been
new
playing?
I've been playing the new Tekken.
Yeah, how do we feel about the new Tekken now that you spent more time with it?
I actually have grown to really like it. I was very weirded out by a lot of the changes at first, but I realize it's made it much more accessible to both newcomers and people that have been playing for years and years and years. The story mode was fantastic, and it did this thing where if you're not familiar with it, like after the fourth game, one of the main characters, Jin Kazama, changed his fighting style completely to basically say fuck you to his family. And at the end, he ends up going through the entire roster of all the different fighting styles he's used or is somehow attached to, while trying to beat his dad, Kazuya. It was... What?
Can we just acknowledge that no genre has more batshit insane storylines and canons than fighting games?
Acceptable. I'm totally okay with it. I've as I said, that's the entire reason I actually fell in love with the Tekken series, is because the main character in the first game is not a good guy.
Mhm.
He literally, his ending was he threw his dad off the same cliff that his dad threw him off. So...
God, we're
fair,
not
does
even
that
going
make
for
you
metaphorical generational trauma.
To be fair, does that make you a bad guy if you do that? I mean...
Oh, he's a piece of shit. Kazuya has always been a piece of shit. And, like Raul said, it's been just batshit crazy after batshit crazy. It's, at one point, the good guy of the series decides, I'm going to start World War III to try to draw out the evil entity that's been causing me to be a bad guy. And it didn't work. It's fucked up.
It didn't work as in it didn't start World War III, or it didn't work as in...
He started World War III, beat the entity, it didn't fix the situation, So now he's just the guy who started World War III. And then at the end of that, his dad basically stood up and goes, I'm declaring martial law on the entire planet. The only way you can, survive is to fight your way out. Like, as I said, the entire story is nuts, but I kind of love it.
Look, you can either write something really well or write something completely insane.
Oh, it was done really well, though. Like, as I said, I was impressed. The way they did, like, the transition between characters, they actually kind of implemented a little bit of every character into the main story. Like, because this takes place directly after Tekken 7, which had Akuma from Street Fighter as part of the story.
Okay.
I was kind of disappointed they didn't touch on that at all. Like, but for licensing reasons, I assumed it wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as I said, it's well done. The game is much more flashy and much more. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's just bigger now.
It's more spectacle.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
But it's as I said, I'm still enjoying it.
Good.
It's still one of those situations where, like, I'm really good at the game until I go online, and then I'm quickly humbled. But
got to get a slice of that pie.
yeah, fuck all that.
What else you been playing? Anything else?
No, that's about it. Like, my sister for my upcoming birthday just bought me the deluxe version of the new Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I haven't actually got that yet, but I'm actually really looking forward to it because the remake was a lot better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
But that's really about it at this point.
All right. To keep Michael happy here, I'm actually going to toss it to Zoe next.
So, as you guys know and have heard, I've been playing through Darksiders. I finished the first one, I think sometime last week, and then I was very excited to start the second one. I was a little confused at first because I didn't realize, like, initially that they were, like, parallel stories. So I remember last time I was talking about how's it going to work where you're just playing one of the horsemen, because at the end of the first one you see all the, like, other horsemen show up. And so this explains why you're only playing as one of the horsemen, because, at this time that has not happened yet. The game mechanics are very different. Like, this, not even just the character itself, but, like, the game as a whole. There are some things that I like better. Like the fact that enemies now have, like, a health bar. I always like knowing just where I am in the goddamn battle, especially at least if there is no physical kind of indication of where the enemy is. But it definitely added in some, like, Diablo-esque things. Like, now I'm picking up pieces of armor that I get to use at different levels instead of just, gathering skills on top of skills on top of skills, where, like, there's really no leveling. I mean, there is a leveling system in the first Diablo, but, like, for weapons, not necessarily, or not the first Diablo, but the first Darksiders. But more like leveling weapons rather than the character themselves. And so that's interesting. His movements are completely different. I'm finding that, I'm really having to shift what I think the character is supposed to do. Because where, like, War is kind of like this big, like, stalking character and does different things, Death is, way more agile. He can, like, wall run and shit like that, and War couldn't do anything like that. He was much more, like, forceful. And so, like, even in the game, at least where I'm at right now, there's not even, like, a parrying move that, like, War had. And it might be something that shows up later, I don't know, but, like, it's more like a dodge thing. And so I'm liking the story so far. I do like that there is kind of more of an RPG element by you being able to decide what the hell you're saying to people and what you want to talk about. So I do like that. It is a big shift, but I'm not mad at it. It's just taking some adjustment considering I picked this one up so close to playing the first one that, like I said, the mechanics are so different. So other than that and having to like try and shift my thinking on how the character is supposed to work, I'm enjoying myself so far.
Good.
That ending of the first game actually gave me chills the first time I saw it.
Oh, it's fucking awesome.
Like, yeah, it was so melodramatic. I absolutely adored it. The second game, I kind of disliked the loot mechanic. I preferred the first one, which was kind of a cross between God of War and The Legend of Zelda. The Darksiders 2 kind of had more of an MMO feel, a little bit, whereas then the third one is supposed to be like a Souls-like, and then the fourth one is straight up Diablo.
Why couldn't they just like stick with one thing?
They just wanted each one to feel differently. They wanted to give each its own identity.
That's interesting.
The third one, because the third one takes place just before the first one. So you go to still a post-apocalyptic Earth, but it's still everything is kind of lush and overgrown and things like that. Fury's story, actually, I think is honestly one of my favorites. Like, the first one is still hands down my favorite, just because it set the tone and things like that. And then the fourth one is actually a prequel to all of it. Like, it takes place right after the fall of man.
Okay.
So do you get to play as all four horsemen?
Yes. The fourth one, you play as... You actually... So as I said, it's an overhead isometric Diablo-style game. You play as both Strife and War, and you could switch between the two.
I'm kind of upset that the fourth horseman is Strife. Like, because I went and looked it up, like what the four horsemen was, and like really depending on what fucking mythology you're following, they're different. And I get that, but like, I really liked like Pestilence, and I was like, that would have been an interesting like thing to see as a horseman. I'm just like, how do you put that into a game? Which is why I'm guessing they didn't go that route, and I totally get it. But like, I just thought it would be cool, you know, to have an ability that just like, you know, because right now with Death, like one of the abilities I have, which is also interesting because it's a skill tree now, and so I'm just like, but you know, one of his abilities is to like raise ghouls that fight with you, and I was like, okay, that, you know, is very much fitting of Death. And so everything in my head was like, oh man, I hope it's Pestilence, and he has like this thing that just like goes out and fucks with people, you know, just like makes them sick or something. Like it would have been really cool to see some abilities like that. So I was a little disappointed when I looked it up and found that the other one is Strife.
Yeah, like, I understand why they changed it, because that would be kind of difficult to do across the board. Like, Strife uses guns. He uses dual pistols, so which is why they kind of went the Diablo route with it. So it's literally a twin-stick shooter with him. Whereas War in that game plays exactly the same as he plays in the first game. It's just from a farther distance.
Okay. Oh. Zoe, have you been picking at anything else this week? Or was it just Darksiders?
I wanted to start Pal World, but I only didn't because I started playing Diablo 2 while that was downloading, and then forgot to go back and actually start the other one because I've been playing Darksiders. But Pal World is on my list. Honestly, it came into my view because one of my kids I was talking to was talking about it, and I didn't even know. Well, I did know it had existed, but like that's because I saw it in, I don't know, one of the random fucking video things we saw where they like tease new games and shit. So I don't know which one it was, but it was one of those. But I forgot about it. And then right after my kid told me about it, my brother made a TikTok about it, and I'm like, fuck, I really gotta play this game. And because you know, when you hear a game called Pokemon with guns, it's kind of hard not to like want to play something like that. And also, I'm not gonna lie, the whole controversy with it being Pokemon but not Pokemon is kind of entertaining to me. Because I'm not gonna lie, I've played some of the other Pokemon games and they're just not really my thing, but so far everything I've seen of Power World looks pretty awesome. So I'm excited. But have I actually played anything else? No.
Just remember, it's always morally okay to pirate Nintendo games, and that it's also morally okay to violate their IPs in other ways as well.
There's a contentious topic, and we've gotten into that over the years here. But that said, Wes, are you back on your Yakuza bullshit?
I have not lately had much sit-down time to do it, so a lot of the time that I'm actually playing games, it's something that I can do like one session for 30-45 minutes at a time. So that's been a lot of Hades lately, and I'm this close to having all the Steam achievements finally. I keep saying that the one thing I don't like about that game is hello, talking about games. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's so going at the beginning of the show now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Anyway, but like, that game has a great story with terrible pacing. So, like, the last thing I'm needing is to unlock all the companions, or not the companions, your chthonic companions, which you can only get the last one that I have, Antos, when you finally get Achilles and Patroclus back together, so that those roommates can finally start rooming together again. But, and so basically you have to find Patroclus enough times, listen to him say, I don't get to be with Achilles anymore, and that makes me sad. Go back to Achilles and hear him say, I don't get to be with Patroclus anymore, lad, and that makes me sad. Do that about 10 times, and finally Patroclus is like, I know I've known this whole time you've had the ability to reunite us, so can you please do that for me? And so, yeah, I just have to find them one more time, Achilles and Patroclus together, give Achilles his ambrosia, and then we'll finally get that last Steam achievement for the game.
Okay. Anything else on the hit list this week?
I'll cheat again a little bit and say I've still been working on some game dev stuff in Godot. Not really properly playing a game, unless you count the ones that I'm making.
That's valid.
I'll be completely honest and say I'm still doing like guided practices at this point because I'm still trying to get familiar with it. And this is the first time I've ever, outside of school, done a coding project seriously. So, some work to get done there.
Okay. Let's see here. Well, in that case, I rolled credits on Old School Musical, and it was absolutely delightful. And I'm kicking myself even harder knowing that I sold preemptively my physical copy of that to LeGroux, but we already talked about that. But just rolling credits on it just doubles down that fucking feeling. But it was a lot of fucking fun. Michael, if you haven't played it, you'll probably get a chuckle out of this. Pretty much all the stages, or like stage names or world names, are spoofs and parody, because that's essentially what it is. It's a lot of like spoof and parody of other video games, and so you'll go through like individual worlds that have usually like 3 songs a piece to them, moving you through the story. but there were ones like what was it? Wind of the Savage instead of Breath of the Wild. There was Iron Snail instead of Metal Slug. Shit like that. It's so fucking cheeky and cheesy. It's just perfect.
What's this game called?
Old School Musical.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, no, it's been around for a few years, but you watch for it on sale on the eShop. If you can find it at a good price, you'll have a really good time.
All right.
And it's not super long. You could probably plow it in a weekend.
Okay.
So, but the story was super cute. There's even extra funny shit after the credits that I won't spoil. Just know that it's there and there's something fun to look forward to. That's probably been that, and I finally fucking cracked through the intro of Control, and I'm getting into some of the meat of it. And that might be my next big fixation game that I actually start hammering on. I'm coming to terms with the fact that I'm not good at it, but I'm enjoying it anyways. Shooters are not my jam, especially third-person shooters for some reason. I do extra crappily with. As Zoe saw when we were attempting some Gears of War co-op, and then my kid pointed out, quite in the way that only a 7, almost 8-year-old child can, Daddy, you're not good at this game. No, honey, I'm not. But that said, it's story-wise, it's got like just the right mix of elements. It's got that sci-fi piece to it. It's got almost a touch of Silent Hill 2's ambiance with like the menacing fog kind of thing. They call it the hiss. So it's got some of that horror to it, but like just the right level, just the right balance of. And the story is the bits that I've gotten so far are legitimately interesting. This whole concept that the building essentially hides itself, and you can only find the door to it if you're looking for it, and the building likes it that way. So like the whole Control office is its own sort of sentient entity. I'm like, ooh, this is neat. I like this. That, and it does the whole, Commertage thing where it connects to a bunch of different places all over. So you can go in one door in New York and, come out in, I don't know, Bangkok in another door. So the visual vibe gives strong hints of Super Hot. Lots of red and white overtones. Not so much it actually does even kind of push the low poly geometric shape thing with some of the brutalist architecture stuff that it's got going on. But it's cool. I dig it. I'm probably going to sink more into it, and then I'll end up gushing with LeGrew about it because that's his jam, the whole Remedy verse.
You're
So,
saying red and white. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I was just going to say this may end up finally leading me into the Alan Wake games.
Yeah. But you saying red and white reminded me, just in case anyone with any sort of photosensitivity might be listening to this, do not play if you have any kind. If you have epilepsy, if you get migraines with it, like there are flashing lights everywhere in that game. I've checked. There is no way to turn them off.
Yeah, that's a complicated one. And there's an old episode with Eddie and I, kind of talking about where the line is in compromising your artistic vision for accessibility.
Right. But
No,
I'm fortunate not to have epilepsy, but I can get really, really bad headaches when I see flashing lights. So, yeah, I'm not exaggerating when I say there are parts of that game that have caused me physical pain. So, you gotta be careful when dealing with that.
Right. Well, that's almost an assumption with any game these days. Is just assume there's flashing lights somewhere. So,
Right. A lot of them, though,
I mean,
at least
for
will
years
have
now,
some.
I would say for years now, Nintendo's put the epilepsy warning in front of every game they make, whether or not it's actually got anything in it that would trip it.
Right, right.
So, but at this point, I'm pretty sure we all know that story anyways.
I wonder, but it kind of makes me feel like, though, like, just because everyone's doing it, and I'm not saying this automatically makes an excuse, but, like, when everyone does it, it really cheapens what the warning is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, here's one where it actually can be a problem and you can't turn it off, compared to the one where it's like, oh, you flash red just a little bit and at a slow rate when you take damage. Not even close to the same thing, you know?
Yeah. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. Just observing,
Yeah. That's kind
commentating.
of my stance on, well, not really a stance, just more so an observation on the game, that it's not very accessible for people with photosensitivity issues.
Yeah. But yeah, it's good though. I like it. I really like the fucking gun. It's cool as shit watching that thing reload from an empty clip. So it vaguely reminds me of the precursors of the Forerunner that was in Halo 4. But their weapons had like the floaty bits and shit that I thought was really goddamn cool. So, but that's about all I've been playing, honestly. It's been a real fucking busy week. Just lots to do. That, and I've spent some time. I've been shifting my time a little bit from game time to sitting and actually reading some comics, and I'm going to deviate and gush for a minute because it's on my brain and it made me really happy. So just, happy story. I got my my belated Valentine's Day present this past week, and it was a copy of Captain America Truth, which has been out of print for a while, and apparently they just did a fresh run of them. And so the local comic shop ordered me a copy at my request, because they knew that I'd been wanting to read it. We'd talked about it a few months ago, and I'd seen something that made me think there might be. And so they looked and went, "Holy shit, there is! Let's get you one." And so we went in for comics on Thursday. Had to think about that for a second, and so that came home with me. And later that night, actually, we were going to bed, and I wasn't quite ready to conk out yet, but Zoe was. So, turned off the bedroom light, and Zoe's laying there passed out next to me. There I sit, because I'm like, I'll just read the first chapter issue, because it's a 6-issue trade back. And so I'm sitting there reading, hunched over with a flashlight in my hand so that, Zoe can sleep because lights off. Got through that first issue and then just did not stop until I had read it front to back in about 2 hours. Just so good. But if you can get your hands on it, do. It's very good. It's the story of Isaiah Bradley, which if you've watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you've seen Isaiah in that, and this is his story. I won't spoil more than that, but just, whoof, very, very good. Strong recommendation. So, other than that, like I said, I haven't played as much. I've been reading a little more lately in the comics. So, but that's a good place to wrap this part up. Let's take a moment and shout out our awesome sponsor, Imaginary Authors, helping you up your scent game with fragrances for guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Also now offering awesome candles and bar soaps. Highly recommend you check out a growing favorite of mine, Memoirs of a Trespasser, notes of vanilla and oak barrels, and a couple of just, Like, don't get me wrong, City on Fire is my go-to, but man, Memoirs of a Trespasser is creeped right up there. It's kind of like a slightly more mellowed out City on Fire. So if you've tried that one already, you like that, you'll probably dig this one. So go check them out. They've got sample bottles for a couple of bucks a piece, so you can go put together your own, like, build your own sample set even. Try a bunch, see what you like, without, dropping 50, 60, 70 bucks on a bottle of something and getting something that you don't like. So it's a really good way to do it, especially for moving something like buying fragrances to an online shop. I've been very happy with them, and I got good money. It says you will too. So go check them out. Link in the show notes. Use that link. It helps us, it helps them, and it helps you. So all that said, we'll be right back after the break. And we're back with the third half of the show. This week, we are diving down the warp pipe.
Oh, wow. Love these pipes.
And we're going to be looking at whether or not Zelda and Zelda-style games should finally just be broken off into their own genre, subgenre. So, let's dig in, because I got Kathy and LeGrew here with me for this one. I'm gonna take a wild shot in the dark and say arguments for Kathy.
Oh, jeez. I mean,
am I right?
Are we not already? I mean, aren't Zelda games already their own genre? I mean,
Nobody looks at Okami or Darkside and says Zelda-like, though.
well, because I think Zelda has influenced so many games. It's like Zelda is its own entity. I don't even think we can really. I think Zelda. You see the influence of Zelda in almost every single game since, especially a lot of these open world exploratory games. I mean, I would even go as far to say, like, even games like Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls games, the role-playing games have some Zelda-esque stuff in there.
Maybe the conversation is Zelda the first open world game?
I mean,
because Zelda has a formula, though, and games like Skyrim and the like don't follow that formula.
They don't follow.
Right.
They don't. But they.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
because
so
you've got the ones that do follow that formula, but they're their own series, franchise,
Right.
IP,
Well,
whatever.
and that's maybe the reason why there really isn't ever that comparison, because people don't think about it that way, because they look at, if you say Zelda, you're immediately not thinking of a game style, you're thinking of the games themselves. When somebody
Right.
says Zelda to me, I'm thinking specifically those type of games. I see hints of Zelda, but I don't think of like Okami or what was another game I played that reminded me a Zelda-like one.
Darksiders was there.
Darksiders was there. No, there was a different one that I played, and I was thinking this is
there
very
was Blossom King.
No, I can't think of it. But anyhow, there are games where I'm like, I see the hints of Zelda, but it's not.
Zelda.
But I would. It's not Zelda. Zelda is its own It's its own.
And that's why
world.
I think that's why Raul's talking about this. Like,
Yeah.
is it time we say that Zelda is its own thing?
I think Zelda is its own thing, and I think that's how most people see it. There is always going to be that influence because of how good the games are, and I think Zelda also. The other thing about Zelda is that it's evolved. It's not one type
Right.
of game.
And I think that's where the problem lies.
Yeah, because
it's
how-
almost like
Well,
you do
up
2D
until
Zelda, from 3D Zelda to Breath of the Wild Zelda to
up until Breath of the Wild, so everything preceding it, Zelda-wise, functionally followed the same formula, whether it's 2D or 3D. And so you've got other games that have aped that formula, that design, whether 2D or 3D. And I'm going to lean on these heavily just as point comparisons, not that they're the only ones, but easy reference. 2D, Blossom King.
Okay.
And 3D, Okami.
Okay.
Because we can look at and go, this is the translation of that formula in 2D or 3D. But that formula, the underlying formula, is still functionally the same no matter which way it's presented. It's big world with, half a dozen to a dozen dungeons.
Okay.
Find the dungeons in the right order. Get into the dungeon. See things you can't.
Uh-oh.
I know. Oh no.
Screenshot this.
Do yeah.
Oh. Sorry,
You froze out.
Raul, you froze out.
Yeah, Raleigh.
Oh, did
you
I?
were frozen. Yeah, we
You were the
sitting
one
there
that froze, and in general, we both froze. I said, we got to
kinda like-
screenshot this because your screenshot was epic.
Yeah.
Oh God. Now I'm going to be curious how this actually came out in the recording itself, because the recording that it spits out is a little bit different when
Right.
It is.
there's various freezes. It's a weird thing, but compliments to Skype. They figured it out pretty decently.
They got an AI overlay that figures it out pretty good.
That's good.
Yeah, no, respect. So shout out to Skype that, everybody else fucking forgot about. We're still here. Anyway. Dinosaurs in the Zoom age. But
I know how it
anyways,
feels. I know how it feels, Larry. Or Raul.
Yeah.
Sorry.
no,
Well, you
you're
got-
fine.
You got to
I
change your
know.
name.
I know, but it's hooked to the fucking profile address, and there's not anything I can do about it.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. But anyways, so you've got this functional formula that translates into whatever presentation you want to go with here. Hell, you could probably pump that into first person just fine too. I mean, if Skyrim actually laid out their game formula the same way, you could put that in first person.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's the design philosophy of how the whole game orchestrates and strings together. And so, I look at Okami and I go, that's a fucking Zelda-like. You look at Zelda and you go, that's a Zelda-like too, because it's generally just lumped into, this is the RPG category. And to me, that always seemed weird, with the exception of Zelda 2, because there's so little RPG element to it. There's not really the stats and the number crunching happening. It's weird to me that's where that landed.
Yeah, I don't understand why Zelda landed in an RPG at all.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think it's like Kathy says, I really feel it's its own thing. I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like if you said Zelda's its own thing, I'd be like, yeah, we already know that. Like, tell me
Right,
something I don't know. But I
But
do
the problem
understand.
is it's not alone in that category now either.
Right, I do get that, and it's almost like the term Metroidvania, right? Like we use that. We use
A
that.
new Metroid comes out and you go, that's a Metroidvania. A new Castlevania comes out, you go, that's a Metroidvania.
Right. And everyone understands what you're talking about when you say that. So if you say, like, for example, like a game like Tunic, I did hear it described. Oh, it's Zelda, like Dark Souls meets Zelda, right?
Yeah.
That kind of like game like that. So I think when you really boil down to it, it's just obviously it's a language issue. Is this worth? I think the question would be, is it worth giving its own category? And I think it absolutely is. But would we just be even gatekeeping even more now, because we already have problems with the term Metroidvania? We've had episodes where we talk about that. Like, is that gatekeeping to people? Is that like not inclusive to other people that don't know what we're talking about? If we said, well, like Zelda-like, if you've never played a Zelda game, I mean, first of all, if you're a gamer and never played a Zelda game, what the hell is wrong with you? Sit down. There's something there for you.
Right.
At any level. I mean, you could be I was 9 when I played Zelda, because that's when it first came out. So I remember buying it and playing it, and I was just like loving it, right? And then every game that came after that, like Zelda 2, I skipped at the time because I was just too young to really appreciate it. And, Link to the Past, like that was a game that was mind-bendingly different than Zelda 1, but yet the same. And so, like, is it fair to like say like, oh, that's a Zelda-like game? And I think it's fair to say that, but is it a good descriptor for everyone else? And I just don't know.
And I think that's the issue that I have, is because, like I said, when somebody says Zelda-like, I have a hard time picturing what that would be, referencing a different game, because for me, Zelda is so just synonymous with Link, the princess, and Ganon, even though Ganon isn't in everything.
Mhm.
So it's very, for me, it's very specific. But but like when we talk about Metroidvania, I'm able to combine those two games, and I see that as more
You know what I
more-
think it is? I think having the Venn diagram is what does it. And I've
okay.
there was a conversation about it. I want to say, oh God, no, this has been a couple of years now. But the narrowing down what defines a Metroidvania is you take the Venn diagram of Metroid and Castlevania and all the stuff that's in the middle. That's your definition of Metroidvania. Where that overlap is. But it wouldn't be the first time that a single game has spurred its own genre. We've got Rogues. That's where it came from. You know, at one point we had the Doom clone, which just, you know, eventually evolved into Boomer Shooter.
Right.
Is a bigger hole. Love how LeGroux pops right back up as we shout Boomer Shooter.
Hey, Doom is one of my favorite games of all time. So.
Why do you think I mentioned it? It was so that
I
you know
know.
you'd fix your connection.
Yeah, no, it was fixed. I had a good friend call. I had to take that call. So,
but it, like I said, I think the only thing lacking here is the other game, the other established game to overlap it with to create that Venn diagram. But I still think though that and at
I mean,
this
do
point,
you actually have to? Because you could say
Yeah.
Zelda, and Zelda has so many different types of games.
Mhm.
It could be Zelda Breath of the Wild, Zelda, you know, Link to the Past, Zelda, you know, it could
Wind
all be
Waker,
one.
I mean,
yeah.
Wind Waker. I mean, like, look at like Wind Waker. So that's.
But
a
aside
great-
from like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, though, they all follow that same formula.
I know, but
not Zelda 2.
No, even Zelda 2 did.
yeah, it did.
Well, okay, I see what you mean, like with the collecting the item.
Find the dungeons in the right order, push
Okay,
into the dungeon, get the item
Tingle's
halfway.
Rupee Collector or whatever game that was, that didn't follow it. Link's Crossbow Training, that didn't follow it.
Well, that's just them using.
None of those, I think, ever got labeled Legend of Zelda, though.
Yes, they did. I mean,
Did
they had
they?
the Zelda, Legend of Zelda, Link's Crossbow Training. I'm pretty sure that's how it came out. Well, not the
Oh, now I
Tingle.
want to know.
Oh.
Now I want to know.
I thought that's how it was. Oh,
Checking
maybe
in
I'm
real
wrong.
time.
Positive.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Thanks, crossbow. God, I played so much of that. It was so much fun.
Those- that was a fun game.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's just Link's crossbow training.
okay. I'm wrong then.
Well, it's not
I
that
wanna-
you're wrong, but that's what it is that it just tells you the power of the IP. Like,
Yeah.
you literally thought to yourself, oh, it's Legend of Zelda, Link's Crossbow Training. Like, how could I be wrong?
That's true.
Yeah, and then there's just ripened Tingle's balloon trip of love.
Oh, like,
No Legend of Zelda in front of that.
No, well, that one I wouldn't expect. That's Tingle. Tingle's a whole. That's a whole
Yeah.
sub, John. That's its own category.
One day NOA is going to open the floodgates on that, and the entire North America is just going to lose its fucking mind, and it's going to be hilarious.
Okay, what about the ones that you had to play with the 4-player?
Oh, even those, a lot of that followed some of that same formula too.
I would say one that didn't follow that though, sort of,
Words?
because you could do it was Link Between Worlds, because you could buy all the stuff at the beginning.
True. You could. They
Whatever-
definitely played with that formula a little bit.
Oh, Link Between.
The Link Between Worlds. Remember Ravio? You
Yeah.
could buy. You could
You could
purchase.
buy all the items, or you could
Items.
rent them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
You would rent them. Mhm.
Yeah, and I never had the rupees because I was stupid. So I just said, nope, we're going to keep playing.
Listen, you know what though, and that was, but again, I think that's where Zelda games also differ, is that they introduced new mechanics. In that game, you had the wall.
Oh yeah. God.
I mean,
that's
it's literally like Mario games. It's the same question. Can we?
Yeah.
And I would think, honestly, on its surface, Mario games could be its own genre before Zelda games, because there's different types of Mario games.
Yes.
But Zelda does follow that same pattern, and like Raul said, until Breath of the Wild, and that's only 2 games. Now, 2 massive games that
Yeah.
fundamentally shift everything.
Oh, geez.
It almost
no kidding.
makes you think, like,
And
what
even
are they
then,
gonna
to
do
an
next?
extent, at least Breath of the Wild follows that formula almost. It's a little pared
There's no
down, but
dungeons,
No, but you do have the divine beasts, which are basically mini dungeons, and each
But
of
you
which is going
don't-
to yield a major power.
But you don't have to do them. You can go
No,
directly
you
to
don't.
Ganon, and you don't see that's where that differs. Is where in the other games you had to go direct. You had to follow that linear path to be able to get to Ganon or to the protagonist or the antagonist. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, you want to go and fight him in your underwear? Go fight him. Have fun.
Oh yeah, but even Breath of the Wild will still coax you on that path.
Well,
So,
it
yeah.
like okay, so Breath of the Wild, yeah, because they have like the island at the beginning, right?
The tutorial.
Yeah, the
that's
plateau.
The tutorial.
Right, the plateau where you can't get off until you actually kind of do something.
Unless you
Yeah.
cheat.
Right. But like a normal gamer is not going to do that. It's
What?
going to be like somebody that's going to figure it out. Like, okay, I just want to keep playing. Like I remember playing that and being on that plateau forever and being like, oh, there's
yeah.
more to this game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was the problem when I first found the underground in Tears of the Kingdom. I'm like, wait, what? I didn't leave it for like. That was my whole problem with that entire game. Was I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go do this today, and then like 5 hours later, I never got to what I was gonna do.
That was me in Breath of the Wild when I first put that game in. I've told the story many times. I went to GameStop at early Sunday morning, grabbed it, came back, hooked it up to my TV, played it, and all of a sudden my wife comes into the door and says, "Are you gonna like eat
Go
today?
to work. Yeah.
Are you gonna eat today?" And it was like 12 hours later.
Yep.
You know, I mean, like literally that's what happened to me. So I'm like, okay. So I don't know. I don't think we really answered the question.
No, but I think
But
it's
we just
it's a
created-
tough question.
More questions. It's the question
It's
that
I
gets-
think we're at a point where Zelda-like should just be in the vocabulary here.
it should
I
be.
mean, it gives people an idea. Like if I'm looking for a game, it gives me an idea of what to expect.
Right.
I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna have to find items to progress further. But in that way, are Zelda games more like Metroidvania type games? I mean,
They don't
is it
have
all
the
one track?
backtracking component.
That's what?
They don't.
What
actually.
Zelda game do you need to go back to an old dungeon for?
Once you complete
You
the
just
dungeon,
don't.
you're done. You're done.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might
Oh,
go
I'm
back
thinking-
to something in the overworld, but you're
Okay.
not.
Okay, we're not talking about
Mhm.
like going back into the dungeon. Okay. Okay.
It
Like,
keeps
Metroid
you
stuff
going
you-
on a line.
Metroid
Well-
stuff, you absolutely have to go back.
They will keep you bouncing all over the place, back to places you've been over and over again. Ball of spaghetti versus spool of yarn.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but like I
That's a
said,
good way to put
they're
it.
close. Like if you get down to the formula, those two are at least like first cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is
I think it
there's
requires
definitely
more-
a Venn diagram between a Zelda-like and a Metroidvania with significant overlap.
and I think it requires more discussion about what you're actually like hammering down for, right?
Right.
Are you saying
Yeah.
it's Zelda-like and because it's like this, or are you saying it's Zelda-like because it's like this, or both? And if you say both, okay, I'm fine. Or like
To
like
me,
when
it's
I say
the
Metroidvania,
formula.
yeah. So when I say Metroidvania, that's what I'm just getting at. I understand the formula. I get it. I'm going to have to go through something, come back to something else with what I acquired, then to proceed. Now,
Mhm.
Zelda-like, I would say would be like, okay, I go through this dungeon, I get something maybe unique that I need, and I could come back, but I don't ever go back to the dungeon again.
Mhm.
Like it's over. But that pushes me through the story.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, if you're splitting this into a genre, you're talking about the formula or subgenre, perhaps, might
Okay.
be more accurate here, because I would say Metroidvania is a subgenre in as much as it's its own genre at the same
for sure.
time. And so I think your Zelda-like is a functional subgenre because there's enough other stuff out there that fits that descriptor
Yeah.
perfectly to where it's like we have a thing that you can point to that narrows it down and say, like what's Okami? It's a fucking Zelda-like. Did you like Zelda? You'll like this. It's It's the same thing with the new coat of paint. It's the formula you liked. Have fun. So, unless you're talking to somebody that says, I only like chocolate ice cream. Any other ice cream I'd like, you're going to like chocolate. That's it. Or you get somebody that goes, I like fucking ice cream. You don't hand them a pizza slice. You go, well, I've got vanilla, chocolate, swirl, strawberry, bubblegum, Superman, and Moose Tracks. They're all fucking ice cream, and they're all pretty cool, but they're all fucking ice cream.
Right. I get it.
Versus the guy that says, I like food. Cool. Have some lo mein.
Right.
So it boggles me that we don't do this. I will say it is not a formula that has been aped so frequently as Metroidvania. So it makes sense that this is not a conversation that's really come up yet.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that we passed the point where it should have come up a while ago.
Right. I agree.
So
Are there a lot of games though that follow the Zelda pattern, do you think?
I've played plenty.
I think there are, if you actually define the pattern.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you define the pattern, and whether it's subconscious or not that the developers are doing it, that's the whole other thing too. I think it might be even subconscious that they're doing it because they grew up with
Well, and it just works.
Yeah, and
I
it
mean,
works.
look at how successful it's been. But
Yeah.
I think that's I guess maybe it's a level of respect for that game. I do
Oh, for
think
sure.
I think with all due respect to all the games that have ever come out, when we look at the history, and I think, Josh, you and I have had the very fortunate ability to grow up with the systems. Like,
Right.
I look at each console as where we were at in our lives.
Right,
Like when we were babies, there was the Atari. Then
Right.
Our elementary school was the NES, and so on.
I wasn't that far behind you two.
No, you weren't that
No.
far. No,
No.
but
but a few years. So.
Yeah.
But I mean,
No, definitely a few years.
we all grew up with that, and in that regard, and I think Zelda has just always, this is why I will always say it'll be its own, because people, I think, just have a high respect for what that game created, and a lot of, I think it's easy to say that Zelda inspired a lot of these open world games, along with Final Fantasy. I would put Zelda, Mario, and Final Fantasy, those three series, as the ones that have inspired most, and Sonic to a point too. Those are the game series that inspired a lot of the games that we played today.
I do not accept Sonic.
I only say Sonic
Throw
because
Sonic out the window.
I only throw Sonic because Sonic added the speed. Okay?
You're right. No, you're right. No.
But really, when you look at where all these games, you have those three series: Final Fantasy, Zelda, and Mario. Three different, unique styles. And now the games, I think we've gotten to a point where all those games you're seeing collaborated into that. And then, I mean, you could even add, and then, you could add in other, you could start going in there, underneath that, if we were doing a pyramid. But those three games really inspired, I think, a lot of where the games have come. Because you'll see, I think I see a lot more of those three games in today's games, where you can actually see where you can point out that's very Final Fantasy-esque, that's very Zelda-esque, that's very Mario-esque. And even with Metroid and Castlevania, you can see a little bit of those games in those top three. But that's just my personal opinion.
No, you're totally talking about the base elements of gaming.
Yeah.
You've got compound substances, and then you get down to the periodic table of elements, and then from there you're stripping down to, protons, neutrons, and electrons, and then to fucking quarks. It's a question of how many layers down do you go? Do you get to the fucking base elements of the universe?
Exactly. And that's why I think it's just so hard to say. I have a hard time saying, oh, that's a Mario type game. It's hard for me to say, oh, that's a Final Fantasy. We've made it into RPG-like, Metroidvania-like, platformer-like.
The platform, at least especially Mario to Sonic to, that specific, and I'm tangenting for half a second here, but that specific got its own kind of category too, because then you got to mascot platformer.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
That was
I mean,
its own specific flavor, and you say mascot platformer, and you know everybody in the room here knows what the fuck you mean.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that the reason we have trouble with that, I do too, and the reason we have trouble with that is because we grew up playing those actual games. Now there's a whole generation of people that are coming, never played those.
Never played those. No.
Right. And so if you say like it's like that, they may actually understand what you're talking about more. And so it might help them. But I'm not 100% on that, because I think they might have played some of those games, but they may not have played all of them like we have.
Yeah.
And they may not ever go back, because you have to imagine, like, we grew up, all three of us grew up with all these games moving forward. New gamers coming in. Like if I had, like my nephew, he's 7. One of my nephews is 7. He's never going to probably go back and play all the games I played.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So would that be but he might play a new version of that game.
Yeah.
So if I were to say to him, like, oh, this is like this one, would he even understand what I'm talking about? No.
Right.
But if that's where his ground floor is,
But that's what I'm saying. Like,
and then
yeah,
you tell him this is a Zelda-like, you're like, oh, cool, I'm looking for more of this.
right, exactly, and that's where
This
I'm
is
thinking
the
that's
genre
where it's
you're
gonna help.
in.
That's
But
where
what
it's gonna
Zelda?
help.
But what Zelda are they going to be looking at? Because I do think Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are completely different.
They
in
are,
many
but
ways.
they're definitely outliers when you look at the mass of the
that's-
series as a whole.
Right, but I think majority of gamers that we see are playing those two games and not like you said, the ones we grew up with. So I think you got to look at that age. Now see, like my kids, they grew up on Zelda because I was playing it for them, and that was their bedtime story. That was what I would read to them at night. So my baby, when my oldest was a baby, I was playing Twilight Princess while they were in the room with me and reading the story to them. Skyward Sword, same thing. So that they kind of have an idea of those games. But what about the generation that's younger? That'll be interesting to see when you say it's Zelda-like. What are they going to be thinking?
Yeah.
If they've never played some of the older versions.
So, I don't know. I think Zelda-like should be in the vernacular, but I don't know. Final vote. Kathy, yay or nay?
I think it's its own category.
Well, I understand. That's like a 2.5 out of 3 on the yes vote here.
Yeah.
So I think we're basically there. So there we go. All right. Well, I think we nailed final thoughts perfectly. So let's wrap this bitch up. Big shout out, big thank you to our sponsor, Imaginary Authors. Thank you to Kathy and LeGroux for coming and hanging out with me today, and chewing the fat and splitting some hairs. And thank you to everybody that tuned in. Make sure, just a reminder, subscribe to the show in your feed. You'll get new stuff every week for free. We don't charge for this. We just do this out of the goodness of our hearts because you should hear it and, be a more enlightened, discerning gamer. And, share it with your friends and make the world a better place. Beyond that, say goodnight, everybody.
Good night.
Peace. This is the World 1-1 podcast, powered by the World 1-1 Podcast Network. Press start to engage your mind. Good night.